Oh, now. This meeting is being live streamed. Got it. Yan, pero hindi pa nag-appear sa akin.
Live na po.
Live na, alright. Thank you, Vipelen. Just waiting para maka-join din ako. Yes, we're live now. So let's just wait for the viewers, some viewers. Kailangan ko palang mag-mute at nag-e-echo. Sir Ian, invite natin ang ating MDI audience. Hello. Shout out to MDI team.
Good afternoon, mga ka-Pix Pro. Please share yung live natin.
Grabe naman, napaka-fresh naman ng AVP 1 na namin.
Yes, parang hindi na gano'n.
Oh, parang
hindi
ano, parang
nagpi-field.
Kuya
parang
Jackie.
woke up like this.
My God. Oh, actually, kakagising ko lang. Charot.
Sana all.
Hindi. Galing
Sana
tayo
all
sa
the
office.
fresh.
Siyempre, Friday ngayon. Dapat
Parang gigimik pa si AVP 1 na later. Tama
Yes,
ba?
it's
Siyempre,
Friday
Friday
night.
ngayon. Coding
TGIF,
kaya
guys.
hindi lumabas.
Hoy, galing ako officer.
Sir Ian, kailangan namin ng video.
Oo nga, sir.
Hi, Sir
Maybe you could
Ian.
open your camera as well.
Sorry,
Sir
I'm driving.
Driving.
Let me try,
Okay. Ingat, sir.
Ayan.
Yan,
Ayan na,
naman.
oh.
Grabe
Yan.
naman, napaka-fresh naman.
Bakit
Feeling ko
fresh
dadami
ba?
masyado yung viewers natin. Yan, ito abangan.
Yes, si
Bola ka
VP
pa.
Reese, nasa live na. Good
Hi,
afternoon,
VP
VP Reese.
Hi, Viveries. Magandang hapon po.
Ayun. Maybe we
Yan
should
talaga.
teach Aniel how to speak Tagalog.
Tagalog.
In good afternoon. Good afternoon in Tagalog.
So tell me what is good afternoon in Tagalog? What do you say?
Magandang hapon.
Maganda kayong tatlo.
My God. Oh my.
It says maganda kayong tatlo. It means good
Oh my
afternoon.
Oh my God. That seems to be tough, man. That seems to be, I would need to learn this now. I can't have pretty ladies laughing at me. I need to learn this now.
You should come here in the Philippines often.
Yeah, I need to do that.
But I would like to request Harley and Priya to turn their camera on also.
Yeah, we have Miss Priya and Sir Harley. Hi, Sir
Priya
Harley.
is from Arcon also, and Harley.
Hi, Sir Harley and Priya. Ay, wow. Hi, Sir Harley. Pa-shout out po.
Ayan, si Mr. Chair is watching already. Hi, Mr.
Hi,
Angel
Mr.
Robles.
Mr. Chair.
Hi.
Grabe ang aga-aga pala. Sabi ko sa'yo, Sir Ian, dapat mag-open ka ng video. Meron na agad gusto magpa-shout out sa'yo. Si Miss Charmaine Torres. Shout out, Sir Ian Palatao. Complete name pa yan, ha? Handa, may fans club ka na agad, oh. And then, si VP Reese, mas magaganda kayo. Ay, iba ka pa rin, VP Reese. nandito lang kami, ikaw yung nandito. Yan, good afternoon, Mr. Chair. Yan, magkakasama tayo last time, no, nung Monday. Talagang mga bonggahan na gowns.
Start of the week pa lang, no? Magkakasama na tayo.
Oo. Para maganda yung ano natin, maganda yung bungad ng ating week. Monday pa lang magkasama na tayo. Hanggang sa end of the week talagang tayo pa rin yung magkakasama. Hi, VP Apple! Nako, may utang ako kay VP Apple. Sorry po. Can't find yung ano natin, background natin. Yan, sige. Intay lang tayo ng ating viewers. So we have 20 viewers na sa FB. Actually, hindi lang tayo sa FB Live, pati sa YouTube.
Yes.
So hello everyone.
Good
Friday na naman.
afternoon, Press Ace.
Wow, sa Press
Thank you
is
so
go, go,
much,
go. It's
yeah.
our chapter.
And
Thank
then
you
hello
po,
din
Sir
po, Mr.
Ace, for
Ben.
watching.
Dako daw.
Yan, intay lang natin si VP Apple. And I think VP
Yun, good
Carlos will be-
afternoon mga ka-Pics Pro. Sorry naman, may tumawag sa akin. Hi, Mr. Chair. Meron na tayong 17 viewers, VP Jessie.
Iniintay lang natin. Siguro na-late lang sa meetings.
Yes.
And so intayin lang natin kasi maganda yung natin, topic natin for today. It's about digital identity and privacy. So maraming viewers natin yung makaka-relate dito.
Si Press Ace pala is also there in the
Oo nga.
live.
Naku, Press Ace.
Hi,
Na-pressure
Press
ako.
Ace. Play it down. VP Jessie.
Yan. Sir Ben, thank you for the shout out. And shout out kay AVP Francis San Diego. Like mo, shout out mo, bati mo.
Yeah.
Heart mo pa, react mo pa.
Marta. VP Apple, we are waiting for you. Hi po.
Hi, VP Apple. Face reveal naman dyan. Ba't nawala si Sir Harley? Hindi ko na nakita. Sayang.
Baka inaayos si Sir Hardy yung kaniyang camera.
Yep. So I think siguro in a minute pwede na tayong mag-start, no. I think inaabangan natin ng audience natin kung ano yung natin presentation for today. So siguro AVP friends or AVP Wana, I can help na i-read out lang kung sino yung ating speaker for today. Oh yan, VP Apple. Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
Napakakisig naman ng ating VP Apple.
Hi, Apple. Hi, good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon.
I would have tried to do this in Tagalog, but it seemed to be very difficult for me. So, I'll try to learn this the other time.
Yes, thank you very much. Trying.
And I appreciate that.
Appreciate
Thank
it.
you.
So, Jessie?
Yep, I think
can
we
we start?
can, we can start na po. So, hello everyone. So, si AVP Wana po ay lang sa atin kung sino ang ating speaker for today.
Okay, so good afternoon mga ka-Pics Pro. Thank you for always supporting us every Friday for this KC. So welcome everyone. So for today's video, charot. So we will be having our topic for digital identity and privacy. So stories from the front line. So our speaker for today will be Mr. Anil Bandari. So Mr. Anil is a chief mentor from 𝐼𝐿. Hi, Mr. Anil. So
Hi.
yeah, I'll just give everybody a quick background of your experience. Yeah, so Mr. Anil is an inspired innovator, technologist, and thought leader in information risk management. He also serves as the mentor for thought leader and provides his invaluable insights for the future growth and development of 𝐼𝐿. He also mentors the product technology roadmap with his insightful knowledge in the areas of risk management, internal audits, and regulatory compliances. So, yeah, well, he also has some experiences in domain knowledge in areas of banking, financial services, and telecommunications, and also has internationally recognized thought leader in the subject of governance, risk management, and compliance GRC. So, without further ado, I will give the floor to Mr. Anil Bandari. Hi, sir. Good afternoon.
Thank you. Thank you so much, and a very good afternoon to all of you. And thank you for inviting me. It's always a pleasure to be on all the platforms that promote cybersecurity in Philippines. And I've been very lucky to have been participating in several cybersecurity conferences and talk shows and even roundtables in Philippines for over a period of last 5 years. And it's always a pleasure to be in Makati actually, and maybe in because there's a lot of familiarity between what you have there and in the Mumbai city. Your traffic is as horrendous as we have in the city of Mumbai. It generally takes you to go from anywhere to anywhere at least 1.5 hours, and that's true for us as well here. So there's a lot of familiarity when we land there. So the topic today is very, very interesting. It talks about digital identities and the way that digital identities are evolving. I think it's important for us to actually take a break from digital identities are. And I would love to take you through this next 30 minutes in trying to reimagine what digital identities are today, maybe in the next 5 years, and what digital identities are likely to be in next 20 years. And what are the challenges around it? What are the risks around it? And also, very, very important, what is the opportunity that all of these digital identities carry for all of us today? Let me try and share my screen with you, and do please let me know if you can see my screen once I put this up there. Is the screen visible? Yeah, is my screen visible?
Yep. Can you put into presentation mode, please?
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you. So, yes, is this coming up in the presentation mode?
Yep.
Perfect. Thank you. So, like I said, let's try and take maybe the next 20 minutes and take a step back and think through what identities are. I think identities are nothing but diversity in humanity. And with that, I would also start to add a very important element which is likely to come up, which is contextual data models. And we'll talk about it in a couple of minutes now. Like I said, let's try and think through identities and take a step back and think through what is it likely to be in the next 5 years? And then what is it likely to be in the next 20 years from now? I think the first 5 years, it's likely to be evolution of digital identities. The identities have still not evolved. They're likely to be evolving now. Definitely, they are no longer user IDs and passwords. Always, we kind of connect the identities to only user IDs and passwords and certificates and tokens and OTPs. But I think they are no longer only user IDs and passwords. So what are digital identities? Digital identities are actually, they mirror you. So digital identities are maybe the good or the bad mirror of yourself, the mirror of ourselves. So for example, our digital identity is nothing but personal thoughts. It's likes or dislikes that you have. It is how you do things, when you do things, where you do things, what you do personally and professionally, where do you store data, and what tools do you use, or computers, or maybe what do you create? Maybe you create art, maybe you create data, maybe you create a product. All of this together in the digital world actually constructs the digital identity for you. And interestingly, you could have one or two digital identities, or you could have several digital identities. And that is likely to bring another set of challenge in this hyper interconnected and digital world that we have now, because what you see on the internet, what you see on your mobile devices, on your apps, could be completely different from what you are as a person. Maybe you may want to look different, maybe you may want to portray yourself differently, or it may be actually mirror of who you are. Both have pros and cons, because I think cybersecurity and all of these elements that you have is actually trying to maybe steal your identities, deconstruct them, reconstruct them for yourselves. And these are likely to be some of the most important challenges that one is likely to see. But before we go to challenges, let us look at identities from a very different prism. Is identity even an opportunity, for example? So let's try and figure out if there is something that we can talk about, something to do with businesses, and how are the businesses likely to evolve? Why do people talk about digital identities? Why do we have digital identities? The first business model, so there are 3 or 4 business models which are evolving in the world, right? And well, this is not constructed by me. This is available on the World Economic Forum report. So somebody could probably just Google and have a perspective on this. So the first model which is evolving in the world is an outcome-based model. Now, what is really an outcome-based model? If you look at, I'm sure you're all familiar with, if I were to look at automobiles as an industry, I'm sure all of you are very, very familiar with Tesla, for example. Why is Tesla valued at $1 trillion, right? Why? Because it has produced maybe batteries and it is taking away oil and gas? No, I think Tesla is valued at $1 trillion because the car engages with you, right? The car talks to you. The car is super smart in terms of where it wants to drive you. Now, what is the requirement when you want to drive a car? The outcome is that you reach a location safely and you are also entertained maybe on the way, right? So the outcome is becoming important. When you go to maybe a hospital, it's important it could become so interesting that even before you enter the hospital, if the doctor knows what is wrong with you, right? That is the outcome. Wouldn't we want to go to a doctor or a hospital where they already know what's wrong with you, so that we are treated fast, we are treated to what it is, and not generally given any sort of medicines? Similarly, if you look at other use cases of retail, if you go to the retail shops today, the retail shops actually tell you, hey, you know what, welcome, we've seen you after a long time, and we want to give you a discount of 50% on maybe jeans that you happen to buy, or maybe any product that you happen to like in the past. Why? Because they have a lot of data of what you've been doing in the past. They know your likes and dislikes. Why do they know that? Because most of the time, what you have in your hand is actually a device which is generating loads and loads and loads of data. So that is the outcome-based model that the world is emerging on. And that can be true for education. That can be true for several industries that one could talk about. The second model which is emerging in the world is called hyper-personalization. Now, why am I talking about all of this? I will, of course, triangulate all of this back to identity, but just bear me for a minute. Hyper-personalization. Now, what are businesses actually trying to do? Businesses are trying to create hyper-personalization when they want to probably sell something to you. So for example, if there's a Nike showroom in the United States, you can actually walk into the showroom and ask him maybe a blue color Nike shoes, which is really not available. Why? Because you like a blue color. Maybe you like a tinge of blue and a red together, and it could be anything, but it is personalized to you. Can you imagine fintech companies, digital companies, they're all trying to hyper-personalize their services to you. Now, this is becoming so important because everybody is working extra hard to understand your likes and dislikes and then construct a product which is actually based on what you want to do, how you want to see it, and how you would like to see it, including music, for example, tomorrow. If somebody were to look at music, you like probably soft music, maybe when the music starts, but maybe towards the end, you may like a little stronger one. You may like a theme which is a stronger theme. So you may like a movie which is ending with maybe good things and happy endings, or you may like a movie which probably does not have a happy ending. So I'm saying whatever it be, because today you are watching it, today you're listening to music, which is all happening on your devices, and the device is connected to an identity, and the music provider actually knows that the identity, whoever it is, their likes and dislikes, and the time that they spend and the time that they don't spend, and all of that put together. And that is hyper-personalization. The third thing is access versus ownership, not really digitalization, because digitalization is helping you to achieve all of the 3 outcomes, but access versus ownership. Now, what is really access versus ownership? Anything and everything that you do today, it is actually nothing but People want to enjoy it. People don't want to own an asset. People don't want to own homes. People don't want to buy cars. They want to enjoy cars. And the younger generation today no longer wants to just stay invested in the home for 30 or 40 years, which probably we or our forefathers used to do, right? And the very interesting example that all of us could relate is actually something in the cloud. People don't want to own softwares. People want to run softwares in the cloud. Easy to access, easy to enjoy, easy to move on and do something else. So these are the business models which are evolving in the world. Now, in order to achieve these business models, what is it happening on the digitalization front? So typically, any company which invests in digitalization is actually trying to do it in these three buckets. Bucket number one, because they want to achieve growth. So any investment that they make for digitalization is wanting to achieve growth. So growth through digitalization. The second could be efficiency, because they want to achieve technology. They want to use technology to drive efficiency, internally facing, profit generating. And the third one is experience. They want to invest in digital assets because they want to generate that experience, which could be a combination of growth and efficiency. And if you were to divide today, they could be front office, middle office, and back office. And if I were to just connect it to an insurance company, the front office digitalization could be cloud adoption, mobile apps, WhatsApp integration, eKYCs, OKYCs, could be auto claims, auto underwriting, automated approvals using AI/ML, and chatbots, for example. And the back office could be automated payments, for example. Can you imagine? Digital businesses are changing the way that we even run the business from front office, middle office to back office. So there is an identity which walks in either through the mobile apps or through their WhatsApp integration, does an auto KYC, automatically based on your profile, somebody's deciding what you want to claim and how much you can claim and what do you want to underwrite, whether I'm a good profile or a bad profile, automated based on AI/ML, because they know in the past, have I used my insurance, have I claimed, have I overclaimed, and during which circumstances I've done that. And then it goes all the way to your settlement process. So if you raise a request, it all happens digitally. Amazing. Can you imagine, maybe 20 years from now, you will just have one server, a huge server running an insurance company for all we care. Why? Because all that I spoke to you today can be completely automated, right? Including the sales process. So these are some exciting times that we are getting into. And now if I were to just summarize what I was trying to talk about, I said, let us figure out where are we going on terms of identities. So if you look at telecom business, for example, telecom businesses are no longer business of voice or no longer business of data. They become content companies, right? A lot of telecom companies are acquiring content companies because maybe Netflix can become a telecom company tomorrow, or maybe Netflix will be acquired by a telecom. Maybe Netflix may be acquired by AT&T for all you know tomorrow. Why? Because the outcome is not your ability to speak. The outcome is what is the content that you're able to show. Because you have already paid for the wire, you've already paid your license fees. And the cost of mobile phones, because you paid for the license fees, is coming down, and they would charge you a flat fee for that. And after that, the telecom companies have to probably write content on top of that. And the same examples are for banks. For example, it's API banking, which means it is direct customer connects. It is power, which is going to be generated by you and sent back to the national grid. So what I'm trying to say is that consumers are becoming producers. Now, why am I discussing this in identity? So if you look at it a little more closely, you will realize that consumers are nothing but people like you and me, and they are becoming producers, and they are all driven by some identity that you have, right? Consumers are nothing but identities. And for a moment, let's just look at what we have come here today to understand the challenges around this. And I would typically say that CIOs and CISOs, please beware. Why? Because the business earlier used to be point of sale, that moved into mobile business. Now it is digital businesses. So even the risk fundamentals are changing. How are they changing? Governance. which was actually to mitigate risk, is becoming a risk by itself. Now, that's a very different way to look at governance. I'm not sure if people here would appreciate that. But just imagine, was governance supposed to mitigate risk? Of course. But now, if you do not have good governance, that itself is becoming a risk because reputation is beyond boundaries. And investors and customers, they have become your threat actors. So in the US, for example, and even in a lot of parts of the world, investors have started to become threat actors. Investors actually chase you if you do not have good governance, and the entire value proposition of your organization comes down, right? Similarly, strategy and planning. You know what? Everybody had some amount of technology in strategy and planning. Today, technology itself is becoming a risk, not because of cybersecurity. Not because of cybersecurity. Technology is becoming a risk for all businesses because today you have easy access to money and technology is available in the SaaS, which means it is easier for a kid to start a bank today than what it was 100 years before, right? Today, actually, a kid could start a large enterprise business. Why? Because he doesn't have to pay for SAP upfront, maybe 5 or 10 or $20 million. He just needs to have an access to SAP, which could be even just $10,000. So in small amount, you're able to actually scale up and do something which banks or large manufacturing companies or large retail stores have taken hundreds and hundreds of years to establish, trying to get the processes right. Operations are becoming risk prone because in the service, we are all over and everywhere, and the company completely gets trashed. Why? Because maybe the taxi did not come to you on time and it came maybe half an hour late. Compliance is becoming a risk because regulators are becoming tech savvy and they're saying, hey, it's no longer okay to just tick the boxes. I want to know your data sets. And reporting is becoming a risk because, again, if you make a small error, your CEO has to go online and say, hey, you know what, we're sorry, we were not represented accurately. So what I'm trying to say is that all of these, which were supposed to be part of mitigation strategies, have actually started to become a risk in today's world. Now, let us imagine identities 20 years from now. So while we spoke about identities 5 years from now, let's just imagine 20 years from now. And this might sound a little dramatic to all of you, but please bear with me for 2 minutes. 20 years from now, probably Anil is sleeping and he has a smart watch, which is right next to him. It connects with the Google, tries and finds out that the traffic in Mumbai city or Makati, wherever you are, happens to be a little low today. So let Anil sleep for maybe 15 minutes more. And after 15 minutes, it doesn't really wake you up the way that your moms and dads used to. It actually just nudges your bed because the sensor on the smartwatch talks to the sensor on the bed, and then I wake up and I stand in front of the mirror, and the mirror actually scans your body and tells you that, hey, you know what, you have been partying a lot yesterday, so you need to work maybe an hour more on your treadmill. So the mirror talks to your treadmill, and the treadmill sets you up for half an hour more. And by the time you finish, the treadmill talks to your geyser and says that, hey, you know what, Anil has finished. He likes a 25-degree, 24-degree hot water bath. And by the time you finish your bath, your sensor talks to your coffee machine, and the coffee machine makes your coffee ready because you like a little less sugar and maybe a little less milk. And by the time you finish your coffee, on your table, you have the news coming up. And by the time you finish your news, and you're getting up, the table talks to your car and tells your car that, hey, you know what, you need to drive Anil to office. And by the time you sit in your car, the car talks to your bots, which are on your laptops or desktops, and the bots already start doing the work that has been allocated to you in the morning, and the reports are available when you go to the office. Yeah, I know this was slightly more dramatic, but can you imagine, why am I trying to say all of this to you? While I spoke about identities being an absolutely fantastic opportunity, just imagine here, a sensor in a smartwatch is talking to a sensor of the bed, which means these are machines talking to each other. The sensor of the bed is talking to the sensor of the mirror. And you know what? They are all talking to each other in the context of Anil. They're not talking to each other in some other context. The watch knows that it is looking out for your path because you travel on that path on a daily basis. Yeah. The watch knows that you're sleeping because the sensor bed knows Anil is sleeping, right? And the mirror knows that Anil has eaten more because it is the, again, context in which you're standing, and then so and forth. So it is not only human identities, but it is machine identities. These are digital identities, and they're all likely to converge more and more in the future. And that is likely to, again, create the next set of challenge that we would have. And finally, why technologies are becoming smarter? Technologies are becoming smarter because they have huge amount of data, and that data is likely to be stored in the cloud. A smartwatch cannot be smart if it is not able to delve into the cloud and try and find out the data set so that it can evolve around the data set. So anything and everything that you do is likely to be sitting in the cloud. You know what? Data is like water. It's like a sea, like, for example, just take a glass of water and try and put a drop of water in that. The construct of the water changes. So the water becomes larger, smaller. So the moment you add drops of water, the water starts flowing somewhere else. And data is similar. You may have a huge page, a Microsoft page written, but somebody goes and inputs maybe 2 lines in that data. The data has suddenly changed. The context of the data has suddenly changed. The meaning of the data has suddenly changed, right? And this, ladies and gentlemen, is likely to make it even more difficult because you will have to start tagging your data contextually going forward. Yeah. But while I'm talking to you about all of that, which is likely to happen, all of that, which is complex, today we struggle with even getting the basics right. We don't even have the definition of privileged identities and what they mean. When we onboard the backend user, for example, a database user or a Unix user, we don't even know whether we want to classify it as privileged or as normal identity. We don't manage the life cycle of bots today, and bots are going to be more dangerous than a normal human identity because they're automated and they're able to create more chaos for you. And how does it even manage the life cycle of credentials within APIs? You have thousands and thousands and thousands of APIs in your businesses. How does one manage the hard-coded credentials? I mean, these are topics worth discussing even today because they have challenges. And while I was trying to show you what is likely to come in the next 5 or 10 years, the today itself is fairly complex for us. And also, interestingly, organizations, because they want to mitigate that risk, do a knee-jerk reaction, and they have implemented and invested in so many solutions. So the IAM solutions, the PAM, the IGA, adaptive authentication, cloud identity and infrastructure management. While we do all of that, and we spend millions of dollars, and we sometimes takes more than 4 or 5 years to implement it, but even after spending so much money, can we even answer the question of who has access to what? Because we do not have a single vision for an identity, a human identity, and all the digital identities that you have in your company. And interestingly, organizations then have to spend on dashboard, logs and review and alerts and all of that you have to do, where again, you spend a great deal of time and money just trying to get that information, and which is still so difficult to get. I strongly believe that we are at times when we would need to reimagine identities. We would need to take a step back and figure out, how do we chart our path going forward? Because identities, maybe workforce or customer identities, they are actually likely to enable growth for you. And we should not create friction. The more layers you add, the more friction you create. And the more friction you have in security, you'll end up not using a security tool very well. So security has to be frictionless. So one needs to understand and enable businesses rather than go to your CEO and tell them, hey, you know what? You need to implement a $4 million IAM project because cybersecurity is a problem. No, cybersecurity is not the problem. We want to go and invest in the business and in these solutions, or maybe a single vision, because I want to enable your business and I want to reduce the friction and I want you to offer more and more to the market. That should be the way that one should look at things like this. And when we're talking about cybersecurity, where are we today? Just let us look at the construct of a machine, a PC, for example. You know what? I try and divide the handled machine or a PC in 4 parts. One is you harden the device, you control the admin privileges, you protect it at the endpoint layer, so which means you look at it at the machine layer. Then you control the installations and applications. you control it again at the operating system or at the installation layer, and at the top layer, you control it through authentication, which could be MFA, because you want to make sure that right set of people get into it. But there's something missing. And what is that missing? The problem with security today is it is very device centric. So anything and everything that you do, it is very, very device centric. Hidden bots, malwares, device centric. It is on a device. Business rules require flexibility, insider threats, but again, you're trying to look at it from a device perspective. When you get into your MFA, you again try and look at it, who's accessing that machine. So you're looking at it in a way that you're trying to find out a needle in a haystack, right? Very, very difficult to follow security in this way. What I believe is the missing layer is the data part of it. Of course, everybody is aware that it's going to be data centric. It's going to be data security going forward. And even today it is, because that is what you're trying to protect. But I think the most important element around data security is, are you able to create a context around the data? Why? Because you and I may have the same set of data. You may need to protect it. I may not need to protect it. And that is what is happening more and more as we go towards being device agnostic, or BYOD, or remote access, or applications are now just happen to be in cloud, and people want just-in-time access, any point in time. Flexibility has to be offered. Attack surface is becoming larger and larger because entry and exit points are many now. And how do you look at context of the data? Again, context of the data is again identity centric. So your personal thoughts and your likes and dislikes and how you do things can become one part of the context. When you do things and where you do things and what you do personally or professionally can become another part of context. And what tools you use and what you create and where you store could become another part of context. So there could be several contexts to the data that you're trying to do. We believe if you were to look at identity-centric security, then this is something that you would need desperately, or this is something that you need to implement going forward, where there should be a solution where you're able to onboard machine identities, business identities, privilege identities. You should be able to handle all kinds of privilege identities, all kinds of machine identities, all kinds of business identities, API credentials and bots as well. And they should have a flavor of MFA SSO just in time. It should be built on a virtual access platform because you want to be cloud savvy today. You want to access it from anywhere to anywhere. And it should let you host your business applications, your data center resources, your endpoints. And of course, it should have a strong governance. Why? Because your audit and your governance is always going to be looking at all of these elements with a strong vault to ensure that you have a fantastic security. And this is something that we have achieved in the last 2 or 3 years. There are global trends which are emerging. Why are we doing this? Why? Like I said, of course, there is a great need for one to do that, but there is also an emerging security domain. So if you look at the Gartner report of cybersecurity, top trends in cybersecurity 2022, you will realize there are 2 themes coming out of the Gartner report. One is identity threat detection and response, and the other one is digital supply chain integrity. Yeah. And if you look at all the stories that you see today, from attacks happening on Colonial Pipeline, attacks happening on the Florida City water supply, that is becoming a challenge. Okta, for example, has been breached. Microsoft, for example, keys to the kingdom have been lost in one login. You talk about it, and I think you will have a story around all of this. Machine identity management is becoming a challenge. So what 𝐼𝐿 as an organization has done in the last 3 years is that we want to address the challenge and then bring the best perspective or the vision or the value on the table. And we have broken up our solution, which happens to be one of the leading PAM solutions in the world. And we have constructed a converged identity platform, which is what is likely to be implemented in the next 2 or 3 years. And that's what Gartner says, that any identity space which is in the next 2 years is likely to be actually moving towards a converged identity platform. And in that, you have a multi-cloud governance built into it, which tells you what is the risk and who's accessing what and creates a single vision for you. And the data contextualization helps you to actually understand what your data footprint is, what is archived, what is not archived, what is automatically classified, not classified, and all is based on an AI/ML model, because you cannot have spent millions of dollars trying to implement something like this. It should automatically get implemented, which means the moment I log into my machine as an identity, the solution starts tracking the context of what you're doing, automatically starts classifying what you're creating, because we squeeze every piece of data that you have and put it on an AML box. So what we're trying to say, ladies and gentlemen, is that 𝐼 is investing millions and millions of dollars trying to get the construct of the contextual data right, to help you to actually create a framework which can let you achieve identity threat detection and response, rather than just playing around an IAM solution or a PAM solution and so on and so forth. And this identity threat detection and response is a terminology used by Gartner. And if you look at on the left-hand side, they ask you to have around 12 very important elements in the identity threat detection and response. It's not really a software, but it is a solution that one is looking at. And I'm happy to let you know that we actually meet almost all of these pointers that Gartner is trying to raise. Why? Because we believe in the fact that you would need value in the next 5 or 10 years, and that is likely to become more and more complex. It is important to start getting the framework right today. So this is where we are, and this is what I thought I would love to share with you from an identities and frontline stories. Identities are both a fantastic opportunity, and identities and digital identities are likely to be a humongous challenge to all of us, and especially the cybersecurity professionals. So thank you so much once again, and pleasure to have been here trying to share my thoughts with you. Happy to take a couple of questions and what you have, and I can stop sharing and maybe give this back to the team there. Thank you. Thank you, Jessica.
Right. Thank you so much, Anil. That is actually a very informative presentation. So I like the analogy that the data is like water. So I think most of our audience can relate, most especially the organization on how can they maintain data privacy. So siguro if you watch, I don't know, if you watch Netflix with a particular genre, so susunod the next time that you will often opening Netflix is meron ng magre-recommend sila kung anong movie based dun sa last na pinanood nyo. So one example of, I think, data na nile-leverage sa cloud using machine learning. So I think I have some questions for you, Anil.
Sure.
First question is, could you please elaborate on why enterprises need to implement cloud governance when CSPs do provide security?
Right. So I think that's a fantastic question. Now, cloud is becoming, like I said, the model is access versus ownership, right? And a lot of people are now, and the trend towards going to cloud is becoming more and more, I should say, hyper-converged, while we still like to do a lot of things in our own data center. Now, it's not always possible that you would only be investing in cloud, because there's a huge demand coming from edge computing today. So, it's a nice circle. The world started with maybe a small computer. They went into something called a mainframe, which is a supercomputer, and then they came out with small computers and laptops, and then handheld devices, and then you had large data centers built up at different periods of time, and then people moved all of this into the cloud, which is nothing but taking all your servers and creating a larger server farm in the cloud. And then now people have started to talk about edge computing, which means a computer which is going to be stronger, but it could be next to your branches or point of sale and then connected to cloud. So when you look at the entire journey, you will realize that the solutions offered by the cloud providers are not necessarily covering every aspect and able to give you a complete vision of what you want to do. So you would want to have a solution which is independent and lets you have a deep dive in all the public clouds as much as possible, and also maybe on the edge computing or within your data center. The second point, which is very, very important, I would always impress upon everybody as a security consultant to be in control of the solutions that you have. I repeat, as a security professional, we should always be in control of the security that we have deployed and not leave it to people who are already providing you with that service. A lot of times we outsource a service and we outsource the security as well. So we say, hey, you know what? I have given this work to you. ensure that you also provide the security around that. That does not happen. Governance has to be outside the system, right? It cannot be sitting inside the system. So for all of these reasons, that a single cloud provider would not be able to meet all your requirements, you would need to have an independent layer, and you would need to have a governance layer, which is actually sitting outside of that system and looking at that system constantly. So I think there's a great use case for investing in cloud, multi-cloud technologies to help you to create a vision for yourself.
Yes, AVPs, do we have any more questions?
Yeah. So Sir Anil, thank you for that wonderful answer. No, so I think it will help more dun sa mga nagtatanong sa atin. But yeah, for another question, you have mentioned earlier that most organizations find it difficult to triangulate and create single vision of the user access. So for you, how do we solve this kind of issue or problem?
So, what has happened in the last 10 or 20 years is that for every security need or every governance need, there has been a knee-jerk reaction because people have started to develop a product which is meeting a specific requirement. Now, there are pros and cons. The pro is that the person who is developing a specific product for a specific need is an expert in that development, and he offers you probably the best thought process. And that has been the case for the last 10 or 20 years. And people have gone for point-in-time solutions because they believe that that solution does that work appropriately. But you know what? You cannot end up with hundreds of solutions. Now, after having implemented all of that, suddenly you realize that you need a solution on top of a solution and then solution on top of a solution, right? You cannot live with this for longer, A. B, you'll end up investing millions of dollars for everything. C, you do not have the skill set to mentor all the products that you have. You need an army of people to do that, right? And D, you're not even able to answer the basic question of a CEO or a CFO that you have invested so much money, who's got access to what. So I believe, and not only me, Gartner, for example, and I've been speaking to a lot of CISOs abroad, there is a time for us to now look at solutions which are more connected and converged, and they offer you a better value. It is possible that they may offer you 2 less features, but what you need is a better value, a seamless value. So I think I would encourage all the participants here to look identities very differently, because you definitely need a single vision. Otherwise, it's going to fall in the cracks. So yeah, that's what I think needs to be done.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you so much, Anil.
Yeah. AVP Wana, any more questions on your end? Oh, I think, yeah. You're on mute. Nakamute ka, AVP Wana.
Hi, sorry. All right. So I still have one more question here. So could you just please share some use cases or example that explains why data contextualization is important for the organizations?
Let me try and share 2 examples with you. The first one could be very familiar with all of you all, which is GDPR, for example. That is data privacy. And data privacy is likely to become more and more important for all of us, as we progress into the digital world. Anything and everything that you do is almost, or all of it is available in the digital world. So much so that one can predict what you're going to do after this webinar, right? So that will not or should not happen forever. So how do you, so just to give you again a basic example of GDPR is, like, I collect your phone numbers today. Now, if I have collected a phone number from you, maybe because you happen to be my client or maybe because of some context, then I would need to understand whether I need to secure that phone number, email address, or telephone number or not, because I have collected it in a particular context. But maybe, for example, Jessica carries your phone number, email address, and maybe where you stay. Does she need to protect it? Maybe not, because the context in which she collected is maybe she's your friend, maybe she's your colleague, and she doesn't need to protect it, actually, all right? And I'm saying this is the simplest of example that I could probably give you. So the context in which you're trying to monitor data becomes very, very important. And if you look at GDPR, that is what they're trying to say, right? And similarly, the second piece that I was about to tell you was that, anything and everything that you do is going to revolve around the data. And that is for sure. And anything and everything that you want to protect is also around the data. So let's just imagine you're working for a finance department and you have constructed some data, like a profit and loss account, balance sheet, some Excel sheets. Why are you doing that? Because you were working in the finance department of that company. So your profile was connected to finance and you generated some data. Now we move you to maybe marketing department, right? But you still carry your data with you. Everybody carries the data with them. Now your context has changed and your profile has changed. Do you still need to be owner of the data that you generated? Maybe not. So, in one of the companies, we implemented one of our solutions of contextual data security. And we realized that 60% of the data that they had were actually stale data. People had not used the data for almost 2 years. And you know what? The first rule of cybersecurity is something that you're not looking at is from where your data actually goes out, right? Test servers, stale data, because you're not controlling it. So I think these are one or two examples that I'm saying would need for you to create contextual data security. And I could probably talk about it for the entire day, but I think contextual data security is likely to be the key.
All right. Thank you so much, Anil, for a very well-detailed answer. So later we'll get back to you for the final words or key takeaways. But for now, babalik na ulit tayo sa ating live audience. So I think every Friday, no, ito yung inaabangan sa atin AVPs, no. So syempre, hindi lang siya maraming learning sa matutunan, but also ang inaabangan ay lagi tayong may paayuda every Friday. So ayan na nga. So magbabasa lang tayo ng konting shout out AVPs
Mga
dito sa ating
greetings natin.
audience.
Mga greetings.
Yes.
Hi,
Medyo
VP
mahihain
Carbs.
sila eh.
Hi, VP Rap.
Medyo maingay lang dito sa location ko, but this is a very good session. Thank you, Anil, for that very good topic that you've shared with our kakwentuhang cybersecurity for today. And Harley,
Pleasure.
hi Harley.
Hi, Garms.
Hi. Thank you very much for accommodating us for today.
Okay, thank you then. Thank you,
Yes.
Pix Pro.
Yes.
So
Alright,
ayan.
sige,
Dito sa ating
tayo. Shout
live
out.
audience, meron nang nagpapa-shoutout si Sir Lawrence Camacho. Good afternoon, and he is watching from University of Luzon.
Wow.
So yan, dapat pala may mga may location kung nasaan sila.
Wow,
And then,
regional ka na, Jessie. Regional, hindi na lang tayo.
No.
NCR.
Yan. And then, si Sir Jerry, good afternoon. And si VP Sheila, hello po.
Good
Hello,
afternoon.
VP Sheila.
Hi,
Hi,
VP
VP
Sheila and
Sheila.
Team Harold. Yan. So, today merong hinanda ang ating technology partner, which is MDI. So, meron lang silang 3 questions, and each questions, you can get 500 Grab voucher. Tama po ba, Sir Ian and Sir Harley? 500 peso worth na Grab voucher.
Yes,
Actually, yung
that's
sa akin yung questions, parang pamigay na. Ang dadali ng mga questions.
True.
So, are you ready? Ng ating FB audience, ready na ba kayo, ating keyboard warriors? So, the same lang naman din ng mechanics. So, you just have to key in PixPro space the answer. Okay? So, it doesn't matter kung small letter, capital letter. So, PixPro _ the answer. Tama ba,
Yes.
AVPs? May hashtag pa ba sa unahan yon? Wala na, no?
Should have. Hashtag
Should have.
PixPro
Sorry
and
po.
answer.
Again,
Yes.
hashtag PixPro
PixPro
_ the answer. Okay, I think ready na sila ang ating audience. So, AVP 1 or AVP friends, you do the honor dun sa first question.
Go ahead, AVP Francie. Tapos ako
Yeah.
magbabasa ng
Okay.
answers.
Go ahead. Okay. So, for the first question natin for our viewers, so pabilisan na lang ito guys. So, yung mga keyboard warriors natin, get ready for your answer.
Parang kasi seryoso ng mga NCR ladies natin ngayon.
Sorry,
Minonosebleed ba kayo kay
napipiyapon.
Anil?
Oo,
Oy!
grabe.
It's a long
Anil, I
day.
think their nose is bleeding with your topic.
Yeah.
These ladies, they are not usually this serious.
Yeah.
I was surprised. I was watching the whole time. Even their questions, they're very, you know,
Very serious.
sorry,
Okay,
sorry.
So
Yeah, let's go back to the
I'll-
game.
Yeah, I'll throw the first question already. So this is very easy. So what is the name of our guest speaker? So
My God, ang
Ay,
hirap
grabe
niyan.
naman.
Wrong spelling right.
Pamigay naman.
Wrong
So
spelling right.
again,
Parang
hashtag Pexpro
babasahin na lang
underscore
eh.
answer. Yeah,
Pwede bang sumali?
of course. Thank you, MDI, for the paayuda.
Thank
So
you,
may nanalo na
MDI.
ba?
Ayan. Naku.
I
Ayan,
think
meron
meron
na.
na
correct
Sino,
nanalo.
sino? Sino na?
Meron ang correct answer.
Ay, tama ba ako na nakita? Ito ba ay si Sir Victor Acevedo?
Correct. Yes, siya nga. Siya nga
Tama.
yung receive natin. Yes. So, yung
Okay,
answer niya is...
congratulations, Vic.
Yeah.
Okay, the correct answer, yeah, Victor Acevedo. Hashtag Pexpro, Anil Bandari.
All right.
Ah.
Somebody's got it right. Somebody's got it right. Lovely. Thank you.
Correct spelling ba yan?
Yeah, it's correct.
Ay, teka, check natin kung
Yeah,
spelling
yeah.
ba.
Correct.
Okay. Ay, kailang walang space, okay lang. ang,
Yeah.
no, ang strict.
Pinahirapan ka.
Strict pa naman.
Okay, next.
Okay,
Next
so
question.
yeah, for the next question, what is the topic we discuss in today's session?
These are some really tough ones that you are
It
giving.
is.
Ah,
What is the topic we discuss in today's session? Come on, guys.
Parang
Most
Come on,
of
mga
you.
ka-Pix Pro.
Pang milk tea din to, pang milk tea.
Come on. Pang ano to, pang grab,
Lalo na
papuntang
weekend.
office.
Correct.
Depende ko saan ang office mo.
Ay, oo. Kung taga Malabon ka, papuntang BGC, kalahati lang yan.
Kulang. Kulang daw po, Sir Ian.
Abono
Hindi
ka,
nakikisabay
abono.
ako kay Sir Ian eh.
Si Ian, nakita ko kanina parang ang ganda ng ano ng background eh. Gumagalaw yung puno ng nyog.
Parang nasa ano siya, parang
Nagmo-morning
nasa
siya.
The Farm. Parang nasa The Farm, San Benito, ganyan.
Wow.
Yan. May
Sana
mga
all.
sagot na tayo, VP Jessie.
Ay, okay.
So from LJ Rufon, hashtag PixPro Digital Identity and Privacy.
Did we
Yan.
got it correct, Sir Anil? Is it correct?
yeah. Yeah,
Yes,
it is.
is.
Yes, it is.
Congratulations, Sir LJ.
Congrats, Sir LJ.
Ayun.
Congratulations.
Okay. So I
Congrats.
think we're down with our last question na, AVP Francie, no?
Si
Yeah.
VP Rock, tumatawa ng tahimik.
Oo nga, grabe.
Mahirap yan
Pero
pag hindi nilalabas.
Tinatawanan kami ni
Maingay
Vicky.
dito eh. Nasa construction site.
It will go out somewhere.
Oo nga.
Okay, so the
Not this
last
time.
question. Okay,
Okay,
let's
next.
before we exceed, no? So name one of the solutions Arcon provides. So name one of the solutions that Arcon's providing. Yeah. So yan, meron na ba?
Wala pa. Nag-google pa sila. Wait lang.
Mahihain, hindi maihayain ang audience natin ngayon. Parang tayo.
Abilisan na lang ng alt tab yan.
Oo.
Diba?
Parang nag-New
Alt
Year
tab.
lang, naging mainhin na tayo.
Oo. Parang kailangan ulit maging active tayo, no?
Oh my God. Wala pang sumasagot.
Ako, I think wala pa.
Name one of the
Wave na lang to,
solutions
wave.
Arcon
Mukhang
provides.
Sa atin na lang
kulang talaga
to.
yung ayuda eh. Dagdagan
Parang-
daw ayuda.
Nako, Sir Ian,
Oo.
dagdagan daw ang ayuda.
Ayan,
But
may
I think we
sumagot
got
na.
Dapat
it.
hindi lang hanggang BGC, hindi mo labon hanggang BGC. Pabuti mo man lang Makati.
Abot yan,
Makati,
sir,
pwede,
500.
Angkas na lang ako, angkas.
Swerte.
Kaya yan.
Ayun, meron na pong sumagot
Ayan.
from the live chat. So, si Miss Gian Nicole Juson, ang sabi niya, hashtag PixPro Privilege Access Management or PAM. I
Perfect.
think it's correct.
Perfect.
Yes,
Perfect.
yes.
Perfect.
All right, so
Right.
congratulations to all our winners. So siguro
Congrats po.
coordinate na lang kami with MDI team, Sir Ian or Sir Hardy. Yeah, but before we end the session po, so let me just siguro call our VPs for the key takeaways. So, yeah, VP Apple.
I think yun, ang bilis ng oras, no? We have very, so, 2 minutes to go na lang. So, well, for me, one of the key takeaways that really struck me is what Anil said about having that conversation with the business on how you try to eliminate the friction on how you try to justify identity protection. So it's really a very good suggestion and learning or key takeaway from me, wherein you try to tell your stakeholders that identity our solution in cybersecurity does not only it's not only a cost-centric solution. It's not only a cost center. It could also be a business enabler, and to a certain point, it could also be a revenue generating
Absolutely
solution
right.
for the company. So, I mean, lately, as we always say, the threat actors evolve, right? So, same here on the defender side. I think we should also evolve in terms of trying to justify internally to our organization. And the tips that was shared with Amil earlier, wherein we try to minimize the friction within the organization, maybe sales, marketing, or finance, will really, really be helpful to move our agenda within the organization forward.
Perfect. Very well said.
Thanks, VP Apple. So, VP Rack.
Yes, thank you very much for the information you have provided, Anil. And I really personally enjoyed it. Well,
Thank
all
you.
of us here learned a lot today about digital identity and privacy. For me, the two key takeaways are first, it's critical that we demonstrate the value of digital identity by creating use cases. This will enable us to generate better adoption, such as linking digital ID to data protection systems, and to make everyone aware of data risks.
Okay.
Second is it is also equally important that we strengthen the security of personal data in an era of digital technology. Well, this comes with several challenges right now. We have challenges in digital management of personal documents, identity theft, document and financial fraud. So it's really very important that we strengthen this portion. Thank you.
Absolutely right. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, VP Rack. And then VP Carms. Nakamute ka, VP Carms.
Ay, sorry, nakamute pala ako. Yeah, medyo maingay here, no? Pero I think as mentioned by Anil, right? So it's not just the endpoint, okay, that we need to get the protection, but also the identity, no? So especially now in the digital world, okay, we really need to protect the identity because, okay, these are like parang the submark mo, no? Whenever you go into a particular site, right? Naiiwan the identity. So we really need to protect that identity, especially in the digital environment. Okay? So, ano na? VP Jessie, it's already the 6 p.m. mark,
Yeah.
ano?
Yeah, VP Carms, medyo nag-extend tayo ng 1 minute. So, first is marami pong salamat, MDI, one of our technology partners. Salamat po for having for
VP
joining
Jessie.
us. Yes po.
Pwede mag-plug in.
Ay, sige po, VP Apple. Go ahead.
Magpa-plug in lang ako So since nasa membership ako, again, I would just like to quote si Mr. Chair during our Pix Pro Partners Night. And isa doon sa sinabi niya during his speech is that there's when it comes to joining cybersecurity, you don't need to be, there's no one born as a cybersecurity professional. Ika nga. So kahit ano pa yung course mo, whatever your course is, you can still join cybersecurity. Fact is, you can be a cybersecurity expert specific into that field. So shout out to everyone who's listening right now or watching this. Please join our crusade in protecting the cyberspace. Okay, #PitchTalk. VP Jessie.
Thank you po, VP Apple. So again, maraming salamat, MDI and Arcon. Sir Anil, thank you so much.
Thank you
So,
very
sorry,
much, Arcon.
Pleasure. Pleasure.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Arcon.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Arcon.
Neil.
Daniel,
Thank you, PixPro.
MDI.
Thank you,
Thank you.
MDI.
And
Thank you.
again, bago natin makalimutan ang ating tagline, bago matapos itong session, sana naman sabay-sabay na tayo, no? So, okay, to the
Cyber.
honor, VP Apple.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody, once again.
To cyber.
Okay,
Pleasure.
what?
And
VP
You always say-
Apple, on your
Thank you, Anil.
On your
Thank
cue,
We
you.
VP
always say,
Apple.
sa lagi natin sinasabi, sa cybersecurity,
Security.
Happy lang.
Walang
Walang
weekend.
weekend.
Care.
Thank you,
Perfect.
everybody.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.
ingat.
Bye. Thank you.